We've got astrologer Mackenzie Wollenzien back on Petty Astrology. Welcome. Welcome back, Queen.
Thank you for having me.
So, we are talking about the astrology of Hasan Piker today. And if you don't know him already, you might not. He is one of the most popular streamers on Twitch. And that's really not like where people, I think, came to know him. I think that's probably where he's grown a lot of his audience. But he previously was a political commentator for the Young Turks, which we will talk about. And then he branched out more independently and has been highly successful. He was actually just mentioned in the New York City mayoral debate, which I felt like was just like a new height for Hasan in the conversation. So I think it's a good time to talk about Hasan Piker. And, as we'll see, he's a Leo sun, so we know he loves it. He probably doesn't give a shit about astrology, which is totally fine with me, but we care a lot about astrology, and astrology kind of nails him, I think.
hmm
So, Mackenzie, how did you come to know who the hell Hasan Piker is?
It's so funny. I was trying to think about it, and I think it was just like a slow, like being exposed to him, like on TikTok. Like I would see some TikToks of him and like his live streams, and then I would see like, the edits of him that are like, super sexy of him. And I'm like, oh my God, who is this? And then I think it was you and Nick were talking about him in the Discord, and I was like, oh, like this is who I'm seeing on TikTok. And so then it was just like a slow process of like, warming up to him. And then I finally started watching like his YouTube, like the clips from his live streams. And then I eventually started watching his live streams on Twitch. And they're kind of addicting. Like it's hard to look away. And I think that's his Leo sun. It's hard to look away.
I had a similar trajectory with Hasan. I don't even remember like when he first came to my attention. I remember years ago that I knew this model that I had, friends in common with. And I think that they had had some interaction because they're both very like attractive people. So I remember like way back then knowing that he was like a person. I think on TikTok was really where I started getting to know who Hasan Piker was like a little bit more. A lot of people clip his broadcast, and he has this Twitch stream that he does most days of the week at this point, and he streams for like 7 hours a day. So if you think about how much footage that is, there's like so many clips of this man
Mhm.
on the internet,
Mhm.
like an unreal amount of footage of him on the internet. So I think very smartly, it has been successful in like, even if people don't like Hasan Piker, they probably know who he is. And, that was what happened to me. It was like I was on TikTok, and, he's got like these thirst traps that you see, he
Yes.
reposts sometimes. Other people are reposting them. He has like moments on the show where he's just being funny, or a lot of times he's saying things politically that I agree with. And so I think that's where I really started paying attention, was like when you see somebody that is saying something that you've thought before, I think it's really cathartic, and I think for a lot of younger people, especially on the left, we don't get to hear our ideas coming out of, people that have a big platform's mouth too often. And so I think for me, that was where the appeal really started, my lesbian ass. I mean, I know he's attractive, like I have eyes. It wasn't the meat pics that did it for me.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hassan. But that was not what I was like, it's really his mind.
No, honestly, that too, though.
Learning about Hassan, and I also have started watching his Twitch stream more often. And what I have found, as we've been kind of researching and preparing for this podcast, is that I really kind of missed the days of turning on like mainstream cable news, and you can have it on all day long. And, they're covering different stories and stuff. And there's like a comfort to that I didn't realize I was missing, because it was something that like used to be a normal part of my household when I was younger. And there hasn't really been anything else. Like I definitely don't listen to legacy media like that, like I used to, because it was just sort of the default before we had all these, internet places that we could go to be informed.
Mhm.
Having him like cover the news at this particular moment when media is all over the place. I think that the past few years have exposed even more of the problems with legacy media and how bought they are. And so Hasan is a humble Twitch streamer, and you pay a few bucks a month, and he doesn't even run ads anymore. And he says, I represent my own beliefs, my own opinions. So he feels a lot more trustworthy. I think is another thing with that Leo energy with him that I think is part of his appeal, because whatever he's saying, and if you don't agree with it, it feels like he's saying it and it's his opinion. It's not somebody above him telling him, like, hey, you're going to tell the story this way. So I have found it cathartic, I guess, is the word that I keep thinking, to have a Hasan Piker on my TV screen on a regular basis, just at least talking about the issues in a way that's not like triggering me all the time because it's so ignorant and so a product of, class warfare, essentially.
Yeah, fully agree. Like, I know I just talked about like how he looked, but like honestly it was like his ideals and just like even his philosophy and obviously the political beliefs and yeah, just him saying like, things that you've thought before and things that you also believe and just like he just says it so like matter of factly and like unfiltered. That's unfiltered is like the key thing cuz like it just feels like, most media it's very filtered and you can only say whatever.
Well, let's talk about his astrology because he has a very interesting chart. So, Hassan is a 29-degree Capricorn rising. He is a Leo sun, which I feel like, comes across very loud and clear. He's also got a Leo Mercury, and then he's got a Virgo Venus and Mars, and he's got a Capricorn moon, slay. And so he was born in 1991, so he's got a Leo Jupiter, and he's also got a Aquarius Saturn, the Capricorn Neptune and Uranus, and of course the Scorpio Pluto. Right off the top, what kind of jumps out to you about this man's chart?
There is quite a conglomeration of planets in his seventh house. He's got Sun, Jupiter, Mercury, Mars, and Venus all in that seventh house. And then his other conglomeration of planets is in that 12th house with that Uranus, Neptune, North Node, and Moon. So it's kind of like he's got these two main areas of focus in his chart. So it's kind of like those are where a lot of his consciousness kind of plays out, but it's so interesting to me because he does have, like, a very, like, stern, authoritative, energy to him, so I think that's, like, the Capricorn, but then, like, underneath that, it's kinda like this warm, like, playful, um, almost like teddy bear energy, and I think that's also, like, the Leo energy, so it's kinda like he just so perfectly embodies his chart.
It's an interesting mixture too, because the seventh house is about ourselves and other people, just like on a
Mhm.
basic level. Whereas the 12th house is our subconscious and it's our connection to all things in existence, physical and non physical. And so it's a very ethereal house. And the seventh house is a lot more practical, it's a lot more personal. And so it's an interesting mixture of energy that we have this like super, almost like hyper personable element to his chart. And then also this like quite private, but also like intuitive and connected part of his chart as well.
Mhm.
Very interesting mixture.
It is interesting, and, I think that 12th house really, like there is a private part to him, I think it kinda, like I wonder if he enjoys being alone, but, like, also enjoys, like, being in front of people, so it's kinda like he gets that with the live stream,
Hmm.
like, he's
Yeah.
alone, but he also, like, gets to, like, talk to people, I don't know.
Well, let's talk about his background because he does have a very interesting history. So, contrary to popular belief, because as the political situation has degraded, and he's, I would say, the predominant leftist, which is not, I don't love the word leftist, it's very vague. I don't think I've ever
Mhm.
heard him say that he's a socialist, but I think he's a socialist. I think we can probably conclude that. And because of that, and because of his success in communication, he has successfully built this platform that there's nothing really like it out there that I've seen. There are other political commentators, there are other left voices, but I just don't see anybody that has done what he's been able to do with his platform. And I think because of that, he has become increasingly more of a target. And so, with all of the racism and xenophobia that we're experiencing right now and how it's being turned up, he's actually an American citizen. People they want him deported because they hate what he stands for and they hate what he does and they hate that he's hot while he does it.
Right.
And they want his ass out of here. But he's an American citizen. He was born in New Jersey.
Mhm.
My understanding is that he was born in New Jersey and then he grew up in Turkey, which is where his family is from. And so he has this really interesting, he's American, but he's also very much a Turkish man. And he comes from a Muslim background, which is another thing that I think is like incredibly important given the moment that we're living in and the things that he's talking about, and especially like covering Israel and Palestine in the way that he does and having the opinions and insights that he does. I think we can draw a straight line between his experience as a Turkish person to what he's doing now.
Yeah, he lived it.
At some point, he moves to the United States, I think, to go to college. And he, I think, went to a school in Miami, which I think is really funny because Hasan, one of the things that people like to shit talk about him is that he's got like a bro-y energy to him. And I think he actually used to be a lot more of a bro than the Hasan we see today. He went to a school in Miami. I think a certain kind of person goes to a school in Miami, like they're looking for maybe some nightlife, maybe some clubs. Like that is the type of person that I imagine is like, I'm going to college in Miami. And then he transferred, I believe, to Rutgers University.
Mm.
And so I think he double majored in political science and communications. And it shows, like, whatever they did, it seems like they did a good job. And he's a very intelligent person. I'm not saying it all came from college, but I'm assuming that that is, a big part of it. And then another part of his background that I was reading is that both of his parents are very educated.
Mhm.
It really shows because I think he's just like a naturally very smart person. He just seems like he knows what's up. But I think he was a bro when he was in college, and you see pictures of him back then, and he looks super different. He wasn't like super ripped the way that he is now. He looks like he's a softer, sweeter boy than we see today. And I don't know every play by play of like what the transition between full bro and this was, but I think it was late in his college career that he interned with his uncle. So here's the big reveal. Hasan, the socialist streamer, is a nepo baby. And honestly, he's one of my favorite nepo babies because I think that we've got a lot that don't really add a lot for the people, the rest of us who aren't nepo babies. I think Hasan does quite a lot for the people who
Mhm.
are not nepo babies. And I think he seems very self-aware, like that he, had this leg up in this whole situation. But his uncle, Cenk Uygur, if you don't already know, is one of the co-founders of the Young Turks, which is a online media platform that became, I think, really popular around the time that Hasan was becoming involved in this organization, and they had like a huge YouTube platform, and his uncle even eventually ran for president. So it's not an insignificant connection to have, and that's his uncle. So he interned there, and then eventually, after graduating, he became employed by the Young Turks, and I think that's where the public got to know Hasan because he started making things and being on camera and doing what we kind of know that he can do now. At a certain point, I think that he started streaming on Twitch and decided that it served him more to go independent. And so he became a full-time Twitch streamer, and I think has grown to be one of the top Twitch streamers that is on the damn platform. It's funny, talking about that 29-degree Capricorn rising, thinking about what Hasan might have been like as a young person, I kind of crack myself up because I feel like he was probably born an old man.
Hmm.
And I feel like that maturity from that Capricorn rising, and not only is he have the Capricorn rising, he has that first house Saturn pretty close to his ascendant.
Hmm.
And I feel like, he calls himself Unk, like, because he just is. He's a little older than some of the people in his audience. And, he's got like an Unk sense of style
Hmm.
these days. So I think he just kind of like leans into it. But I actually, the more that I've gotten to know him as a person on my TV screen, I'm like, I feel like you were Unk at birth.
Literally, yeah. That's such that Capricorn energy, like born old and then you get younger as you age.
It's interesting too that both planets that we would typically associate with parents, the moon and Saturn, are both pretty close to his ascendant. He's got his 12th house Cap moon, and then he's got his Saturn in Aquarius in the first house. And it is interesting because he's very close with his family. Like, we do know that he lives with his parents in here in Los Angeles, which I think is really cute.
Hmm. I agree.
Yeah, he seems like a family guy.
Hmm.
Partly I would put back to, I mean, the Capricorn rising, I think, is just kind of like, it seems like family has probably been always important
Hmm.
to Hassan. What do you think about that Saturn being so close to his ascendant? It's retrograde in Aquarius.
Hmm. It's interesting. When I was first looking at it, like, it's not like I was surprised that he has a first house Saturn, but like he does kind of have like this like leadership quality to him. I don't know that he like would necessarily call himself that, but it's interesting because it also opposes his son. So I was like thinking, I was just looking at it in a way like, he probably is really hard on himself, like holds himself to a really high standard. And those typical Saturnian qualities of like responsibility and like hard work and discipline, all of that I think really applies to him. Like he's, disciplined with like his live streams. He does them like every day pretty much. But then he also it's like, he works out, I think he tries to eat well, but it's just like all of these qualities, I mean, he really just like embodies his chart. So obviously it's funny.
I also find it super interesting that it is in Aquarius because
Hmm.
the more that I have gotten to observe him, he is a leader, I would say. Like, obviously, there are thousands of people every single day that are tuning in to watch him. And then, not to mention all the people that watch later on YouTube. Like, he has commanded this really large audience.
Hmm.
And he's very successful. Like, he has a very nice house. His dog is
Oh.
very well taken care of. He dresses nicely. Like, you can tell that he lives comfortably and he's not shy about that. It being an Aquarius, it's like he could have very easily, I think, just ran the Nepo baby thing out.
Hmm.
But with the Aquarian energy, I think he wanted to do something different and build on what already exists, which is so Aquarian. It's like he wants to be a bit of a disruptor. And also, Aquarius is the sign of the internet.
Hmm.
So, what better place for Hassan to show the world that he has all of this to offer than the internet? So, it's a different kind of authority. A Saturn in Aquarius is a different kind of authority. It's non traditional authority, or it can be if you choose to use it that way. And I think Hassan has chosen to use his authority that way.
It's giving Antifa leader.
It's giving Antifa leader. It's giving you're under arrest.
Yeah.
Uh,
You condemn Hasan Piker.
And we'll talk about, because he's got some stuff going on with that we will get to, because he is at a really interesting moment in time, which is
Mhm.
partly why we're talking about him right now. So he has built a tremendous amount of success, and I think that probably it's probably best if we just get the seventh house out of the way at this point, because he's got a full house going on in there, and I don't think we can get around diving into all of this seventh house. But as you said, got all these planets there. The sun in Leo. The sun is to do with our energy levels. It also is like literally what lights us up, what energizes us, what fuels us. So having a seventh house sun and, and a sun in Leo, which is, it's very at home there. He's energized by his connections, his close connections, his partnerships. And one of the interesting things about Hassan, and it's funny because if you read the things that his like haters will say and stuff, they call him a narcissist, and he's so egotistical and all this stuff. And what's really funny is that that's not the vibe that I've got, and I'm like super critical. So if I think somebody is like obsessed with themselves and narcissistic in a way that is like gross, I I'm very turned off by that.
Mm.
Whereas I feel like with Hassan, he genuinely likes collaborating with other people. It's a big part of his platform. He does have other people on his stream a lot, and he also works very closely. Like, you might, if you don't know what he does or anything like that, you might think it's just a guy in, his room streaming,
Mhm.
but he also has like a producer who's with him all the time. When he goes out into the world to film or that edits his stuff, like he has people that he works very closely with in his work, and I'm sure outside of his work, that I think have allowed him to grow in the way that he has grown. So I really think that those collaborations and his like collaborative nature are a really big part of his success and just like him as a person.
I totally agree. And he's also got like that Jupiter in there too. So it's kind of like he meets opportunities through these, collaborations and these connections as well. And I don't know, I've never like looked into it, but like, everybody that's worked with him, like I think they've only spoken positive things. I mean, aside from like a couple, I'm sure, but I don't know. He seems like he probably knows how to work well with others.
Well, it's interesting too because we're kind of coming off of the back of one of the bigger controversies I think Hassan has had, at least in recent years that I've seen. Uh, he had this really wild accusation that he's like torturing his dog Kaya. And I was watching the stream the day that that happened. Were you?
I was not. I tuned in like after that happened, but yeah.
I was watching the moment that it happened. So I saw this entire lead up, and he was having a frustrating day because his internet was giving him issues and he was jet lagged. He just returned from France, and he has this beautiful dog who is like amazingly trained, just seems like a massive cuddle bug that is often sleeping in the background of his streams because, she likes to hang out with her dad. And she like kind of moved her paw in a certain way and yelped, and people interpreted based on the way that the clip looked that he was reaching for something, and they decided that what he was reaching for was a remote to shock his dog. And I was watching when it happened, so I didn't anticipate that it was going to be any sort of controversy because I saw very clearly the progression of events, and I know that he's not doing that. I just knew that that was not what happened.
Yeah.
Very soon after this story was blowing up to the point where I had other people texting me that I don't normally talk to about Hassan, like, what happened?
Mhm.
Everybody knows that I'm such a dog person. So I just want to say, real quick, he has a Virgo, Venus, and Mars in his seventh house. And Virgos, they don't all like animals, but many of them do like animals and have like kind of a special relationship and connection to animals. Like that's just some Virgo shit, okay? And so, given that they're both in his seventh house, I literally feel like he almost looks at Kaya like just another person in his life,
Mhm.
and probably his favorite person, I would say, based on what I see.
Yeah.
And I'm the same way. I actually strongly prefer my dog to other people. So it was actually made me sad that to watch somebody that I can tell loves their dog, like at the level that I do, be accused of like such a shitty thing.
I mean, he handled it so well. Like I would have been a mess. And he just was like, here's the collar. Like he came in with the facts,
Yeah,
and
very grounded.
mhm. Mhm.
It was just funny because it felt like it really did feel like a coordinated thing. But as I think Hassan is growing in popularity, there's going to be even more attempts to smear him, and this was just like a very sad thing to watch. But you're right, he handled it really well, and unfortunately there's like still a bunch of people that really want to believe this about him. One of the things that struck me about the whole thing was how many people have come out and been like, I've been to Hasan's house. I've seen how he interacts with his dog. She has the run of the place. She's very well taken care of. She lives better than any of us do. I think that speaks to his seventh house and the connections that he's built and how solid they are, because all of these people have shown up for him, even though I don't see him being like, hey, can you defend me? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like these people just did it voluntarily because they actually care about Hasan and Kaya. And I think that is part of like his success.
Mhm.
His seventh house is, he's got a hell of a lot of Leo in it, but it's contained within that Cancer energy on the cusp there. I do feel like his collaborations are almost an extension of his family, like his, these people that he seems to work with his friends a lot,
Mhm.
which is like, living the dream, right? Like, and it's funny because he lives at home and he does a lot of his work at home. And like, I was watching one of his podcast episodes and his mom comes in and slides some like Turkish coffee across the table and then just like leaves. It's just so cute, so there's this blurring of family and friend and home, and I feel like that's just one of the most like attractive things about Hasan, is that you can tell he really cares about his people,
Mhm. Yeah.
and vice versa.
Yeah. And I really do think that's probably some of that Leo energy. Also that Cancer, it's so funny. It's 29 degrees, 45 minutes or 40, yeah, 45 minutes. But I do think like with the Leo energy, it can be kind of like, I always think of like a bonfire and it's kind of like he kind of invites people in to like, this like bonfire type energy. And it's just like a very like intimate,
It's almost like this Brady Bunch of like
yeah.
left-leaning characters that will just kind of come through
Hmm.
and add some dimension. And so, the Jupiter that you mentioned in Leo, that's like right on point. Is, Jupiter can show us where we can seek out opportunities, and so a lot of his opportunities I think have been bolstered by the fact that he has all of these different connections. I think it humanizes him as well. It's not just like some guy, sitting in his room telling us, what to do and what to think, which is not even, I think, how he operates, but I feel like it could be perceived that way. And I think having all these other people in the mix, it adds just like more dimension to, I think, what he's doing and why he's doing it.
Yeah.
What do you think about that 29-degree Leo Mercury? Because in astrology, 29 degrees is one of those, it's kind of one of those special ones.
Mhm.
It is the last degree in a sign, so it's kind of considered the maturity of the sign.
Mhm.
To me, like that Leo Mercury is kind of impressive in that sense. It's like
Mhm.
it's learned a thing or two and has something to show us, is kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, I think it's, a very loud part of his chart,
Mhm.
we know that he is all about yapping, he's, like, does yapping for a living, and, at 29 degrees, it just, like I don't know, it really is just, like, a loud part of his chart, and I think he himself likes to get loud, he has loud opinions, he likes to be heard, and he likes to it's interesting because also, like, it's a fixed sign, so I think he's also very stubborn about, like, his
Yes.
thoughts and his opinions, and he will state them very loudly and very proudly,
As somebody with also a fixed Mercury, yes,
yes.
it's an important part of having a fixed Mercury, is digging your fucking heels in when you're right, because if you are somebody with a fixed Mercury and you're right a lot, people start resenting you for
Yep.
it. They start getting pissed that you're right all the time. They're like, you're just you're a fucking narcissist because you're right all the time. It's like, am I supposed to pretend that I'm not right all the time just so you feel more comfortable
Yeah.
about me being right all the time? I get it. It's also unaspected. It's not really closely aspecting anything in his chart. And so when that happens, it's like it is very loud. It's unmitigated energy. It's pure, raw, mature Leo energy. And I do feel like he really speaks from the heart. I think that's one of the best
Yeah.
versions of Leo energy, especially a Leo Mercury, that we can see, is people that really like speak their convictions. I do feel like that really fits with just like who he is. not really shy about it. I mean, one of the most controversial things that he has said, he said that the U.S. deserved 9/11, and he said it in the context of other things. It wasn't just like he just woke up one day and said that.
Yeah.
I think he has apologized for his phrasing of that. But it is one of those things that people will continue to bring up about him. And in fact, uh, when he came up last week in the New York City mayoral debate, which I did watch the entire thing because it was extremely funny, but it's a very contentious race because we've got a Muslim Democratic Socialist running and doing very well against Andrew Cuomo, who is a noted sex pest, to put it mildly, and then Curtis Steelwa, who is just a wackadoodle, to also put it mildly. And so was very entertaining to watch. But Andrew Cuomo tried to get Zoran Mamdani to condemn Hasan Piker because he's interviewed him before. And he's like, you refuse to condemn Hasan Piker. And it's amazing because that's where we're at, is where a very well-known Twitch streamer is now, they're saying you got to denounce this guy on this public stage. And so we're entering, I think, a new era of relevance that Hasan Piker has to the mainstream and not just to young leftists or people that hate young leftists.
No, it is interesting. Like, I feel like he just keeps growing and growing and getting bigger and bigger. And I wonder if that's also part of his Virgo energy, just like that continual, like, I don't know, need for almost like self-improvement. So it's like a daily thing. And I don't know if that's probably goes along with his streaming. Like, I don't know anyone else who could, do a live stream the way that he does. Like, it's crazy.
It's wild. It's wild. I think you were dead on when you said, his son and that interaction that he gets from his streams, because if you watch his streams, there's tens of thousands of people on these streams at a time. And if you watch the chat, which is on the screen, it is going by so fast, but he actually he reads all of it. And it's kind of wild, but I do think that he actually is like energized by it. But you mentioned his diligence and his routine and stuff. We should talk again about that Virgo, Mars, and Venus, because, partly that illuminates why he's so ripped.
Yeah.
And he said that at a certain point when he moved to LA, I'm assuming after college, he was living with, I think, bros that worked out all the time. And that's how he started getting into exercising. And I think for his Virgo, Venus, and Mars, that's probably one of the best things that he could have done for himself, because Virgos really do need to be mindful of their physical movement even more than the rest of us do, which is, we also need to, think about that. But I think for Hasan, having that daily routine, like the man literally does the same thing almost 7 days a week by getting up, working out, doing his stream. He eats at almost the same time on the stream every day. Like it's so routinized.
Mhm.
And I think that partly that has to do, it's the first house Saturn. It's also that Virgo, Venus, and Mars. I think it's therapeutic, I think, for him to have that type of a routine.
I mean, we were watching him right before this, and when he got on, he was like, "I'm bored when I'm not on live stream. I don't know what to do." And I'm like, that's like such the routine side of it, I feel like when he doesn't have like a thing that he normally does, he's like, "Well, what am I supposed to do?" Rest maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, take a day off, damn.
Yeah.
Another thing I think we should say about his seventh house before we move on is another thing that he cites for his ability to be level-headed is that he hangs out with like normal people. He's not always around streamers and personalities, and he says he hangs out with normies in his free time, and they keep his head on straight. So I think that's also a pretty smart thing, especially given all of that Leo energy, because he's a very entertaining person. That's another thing with all that Leo. He's super interesting to watch. He's extremely funny. He's very playful. He has a super playful sense of humor. I think that's one of the reasons that Kaya clip got taken so poorly, because he has a sense of humor kind of like that reminds me of my own sense of humor, where it has that neurodivergent kind of flat affect a lot of the time, where sometimes people take us a little too seriously when we're like fucking around. He likes to have fun. Like, it's very obvious when you watch his streams. He's making himself and other people like laugh all the time, and that's one of the best things, I think, chef's kiss about like that good Leo energy is that they're just, it feels like the warm sun shining on you
Mhm.
when they like, share themselves with people in an authentic way. And I think that Hassan's really, kind of done that really well because I think he's just himself on screen.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think when a Leo is doing things for like the validation, it can come across as like almost empty sometimes, but like when it comes like from like this authentic space, like from the heart, like it's just like a warm, like fuzzy feeling and like just like
Yeah.
he's just being himself. I think it probably took a bit of time though. Like looking at his
Yeah.
chart, like I don't think it came natural for him, especially because it's intercepted. I wonder like if he had to practice at it for a while before he like got good at it.
I have a feeling if I had to guess that I would think he did just based on the way he's talked about himself when he was younger.
Mm.
And I think that the confidence that he has gotten from literally like being super ripped and like handsome now.
Yes.
I mean, he makes no, he doesn't I enjoyed like his that Leo honesty. He is very like forthright feeling about, the things he says. And he reposts his own thirst traps, which I
Yes.
think is hilarious. But he's like, I used to be like, he said he was a fat kid. That's his words, not mine.
Mhm.
And he just had like a very different experience early in his life. And so I think that now that he's gone full Leo
Yeah.
and he can have the attention that, that is received from him being himself and expressing himself and showing his body and the meat pics, like he actually genuinely enjoys it. And like, more power to him. Why shouldn't you enjoy how
Exactly.
you look and what you feel like? And he's obviously, I think also for him, I think it's partly about how he looks, but I also think it's partly how he feels because, again, with that Virgo energy, I have a feeling that once he found the exercise and routine at that level made such a difference for him, I have a feeling that it helped him embrace that confidence that was under the surface already with all that Leo energy.
Mhm.
And so it's like that Virgo energy, unlocked that interception with the Leo there in a certain way, which I think is like kind of literal, translation of his astrology.
Mhm. Yeah. I could totally see that.
Yeah, he got hot.
Yeah. It was like the ugly duckling, you know? Not that he was ugly when he was little, he was very cute, but I wonder too, like, also just moving, like, away from Turkey, if that unlocked the interception in some way too, and he was kind
You're right.
of,
That's
like,
probably.
grow into his own a little bit.
That's a good point too, because this is a chart that is from New Jersey and then he grew up in Turkey. So his astrology would kind of play out a little differently based on being in a different place.
Mhm.
So it would be interesting. We don't have time to do that today, but it would be interesting to see like how his energy would kind of play out differently there. But you're right. I think that probably did make a big difference. And, I'm sure working for his uncle and being on TV or, TV
Yeah.
probably, there was a graduation, I think, to the Hassan we see today.
Mhm.
I also wanted to talk about his ninth house because he's got his Pluto up there, and the ninth house, it's the cusp is Libra, which is justice, and ninth house is about preaching and teaching, and it's also marketing and like how we kind of frame ourselves, and so I think that it's interesting because this is about his ideas and he's a broadcaster. And so it being with the Libra energy feels very natural for him to fight for justice. Like, I think he really takes his beliefs very seriously. I don't think that it's a put on. I don't think he was like, I'm going to be a really popular leftist streamer and I don't think it's a put on at all. We've got that Scorpio Pluto in the ninth house as well. And so Pluto is about power. And it's often that it's under the surface. It's not always necessarily like right in our faces, but this is more to do with, the soul. This is, if you want to get esoteric with it, which, I do. And I feel like him having this ninth house Pluto is really significant because he is somebody that all he does is message. All he does is broadcast. So for him to have this kind of powerful planet in this area, to me, suggests that he, on a soul level, is part of his purpose to be somebody that broadcasts his opinions and shares information in this way that he does. And there's a lot of power to it.
Mhm.
I think one of the things that is so significant about what he's doing and the time that he's doing it is that because the information landscape is as scattered as it is, and because education is as poor as it is, especially in the United States, which is, mostly what he covers, people are not very media literate. And so to have somebody that is like Hasan, who is educated, intelligent, confident, and very aware, translating the news, explaining things to the people in his chat the way that he does, and sometimes he gets irritated with them, but he is still takes the time to explain things even to people he's like actively insulting, because I think one, he's good at it, and two, he knows it needs to happen. And so I am actually tremendously grateful that at this moment where it's kind of an information free for all and people are getting a lot of bullshit, they're getting lied to by a lot of media, a lot of politicians, a lot of world leaders, that somebody like Hasan will sit there for hours explaining these things to people. I don't think people have realized what a significant asset that is, because another thing about Hasan is he's on Twitch, which is full of often younger gamers. These are people that are ripe for the plucking for the right wing pipeline. These are people, and that's one of the reasons why he said that he's on Twitch, is because he noticed that there was this big gap, and he liked gaming and stuff like that. And he's the way that he looks, he's kind of a bro looking dude. And so he was like, I think I can do something with this. And I think he was dead on. I think that is him following his kind of sole purpose, his like whatever inner knowings that he had to get him to this point. I think he was right on the money in terms of like what he can do for people.
Yeah, I so agree. And it's funny because, like, Pluto can also be like obsessions. So I feel like he's like really, really obsessed with like, all things that have to do with this house. But, it's also the house of like teaching and preaching, and so I really feel like he kind of is a professor in a way. Like, not that he gets like paid to like, I'm maybe someday he could totally do that actually, but like be a professor. I could see him doing that. Anyway, um
100%.
yeah, I think that he really does, like he is a teacher in a way, and so he's, like, teaching
100%.
yeah, like, sharing his ideas, his philosophies, his political views, and
Hmm.
I don't think he does it in a way that he's, like, forcing it on anyone, like, he just, like, speaks his beliefs, and so I think it's a really cool.
Yeah, I would put that also back to that seventh house, because I think the way that he teaches people, and the reason why other people might not identify him as a teacher right off the bat, is because he's teaching as a peer. And
Mm,
that's a really important thing. I think that that's that seventh house, is that he gets beside people. He's not speaking down to people as a politician
mhm.
or anything like that. And other people in the media space, like journalists, have at times been like, well, he's not a journalist, so he's not he doesn't have journalistic standards. And I think that he is actually, going back to that Saturn in Aquarius, he is on a new wave. He is filling a gap that the mainstream media hasn't even realized exists, because they are too, busy doing the bullshit that they do. People need to have this media interpretation happening, because they need more assistance than they're getting from their education system or from the legacy media. And you're right. I totally could see him teaching like more formally than he does now. But I think that this is a perfectly valid form of teaching that I think that just the world hasn't caught up to. That's what it is, you know.
Mhm.
There's so much to talk about. I want to briefly like touch on that 12th house, because there's a lot going on in there with his Uranus, Neptune, North Node, and Moon. It's interesting because he is somebody that he doesn't necessarily strike me as like a spiritual girly, like, and it is a spiritual house. So it's interesting that he's got like all of this going on there.
I think he would benefit.
He would, I think so.
I think he probably I mean, when I see, like, Uranus and Neptune and the moon in that 12th house, I think he probably deals with a fair amount of, like, anxiety, um, but I think he really combats that or, like, exercise really helps him with his
Hmm.
anxiety issues. I think he's talked about it before, it's not like it's, like, debilitating for him, maybe I'm wrong, but, I think he could benefit from maybe, like, meditating or having some kind of, like, spiritual connection, but I think his spiritual connection is more like, grounded in reality type of thing with that Capricorn.
Yeah, it's the physical. The physical is spiritual for him. I bet you, his workouts are a sort of meditation for him. I have a feeling he's probably doing these things and not labeling them
Mhm.
meditation necessarily, but it is interesting because what do you think about the 12th house moon? Because as somebody, he's a Capricorn moon, which to me, we tend to be bosses. I don't know, like we just tend to be people that are able to build things out of how we feel, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, yeah. He's not like an outwardly emotional guy, I would say. It's kinda like he kinda keeps that under wraps a little bit.
It's private.
Yeah, exactly, and, like, 12th house is the subconscious, so it's not like he always understands where his emotions are coming from, that 12th house moon, I think that's why we don't he knows what to keep private, but he also has good boundaries as well, so I think that's part of that Capricorn energy,
It comes in handy for sure.
yeah.
So before we wrap up here, we've got Pluto in Aquarius. It's at 1 degree right now. Hassan has a 3 degree Saturn in Aquarius in his first house. So he is actually about to have a very serious, like, life, marking transit as that moves over. And I have a feeling that we're going to see Hassan kind of blow up like never before. I think that's where we're
Mhm.
headed. What do you think about that?
That's kinda how I was seeing it too.
I will also say here's another thing that I was thinking about it. Given the fact that he is like, I think he's had a significant amount of political power that has gone unnoticed. I think we're about to get to the real noticing. It'll be more than the mayoral debate. I think especially given the Antifa leftist attacks that the government is trying to do right now, he makes a really great figurehead for that, and he's already been detained by when he was coming back into the country from a trip. At a certain point, they detained him and interrogated him. I think he knows that there's more of that coming.
Yeah, I do hope that he, takes security more seriously moving forward because I think just the way things are going, it's a little bit scary out there, but, I don't
Yeah,
think he lives in fear or anything. I mean, we watched him go to the No Kings protest, and I was, like, so nervous, but, like, he ended up being okay and everything was fine, but, like, it just makes me nervous the way things are going, but, not, like,
yeah.
necessarily looking at his transits. Am I saying, like, "Oh, like, he needs to get protection." That's just more of, like, a just better to be safe, but, yeah, with that Pluto on his Saturn, I do think, like what you said, it'll be like he'll just continue to grow and, evolve and blow up even more,
With his chart, I actually think that if anybody wanted to create a platform that is not dominated by these, kind of scary, very rich people that are trying to take over our social media and things like that, I think that Hassan Piker would actually be one of the ideal candidates to like start their own streaming platform. And I
mm,
wonder if something like that isn't coming with the transits that he has, because he's got the Uranus trine to that Saturn, he's got Pluto moving to the Saturn, and the rest of his chart, just in general, I feel like it would make a lot of sense for him to be the one to do that.
yeah, and he was just talking about how he has his own, like, issues with Twitch, so, like
I think he's really well positioned to it because I think that he could actually find the right people to invest in it to where it wouldn't be a super compromised platform. It would be a lot more democratic. It would be a lot more oriented around protecting users and protecting the people that are streaming. And yeah, it's interesting because I just feel like he spent a good amount of time on his stream this week talking about some scary stuff that happened to another Twitch streamer who is a woman, I believe, and was really assaulted at a convention. And like, I appreciate that he actually seems to. It's funny because I've heard him being called a misogynist before, and I feel like my experience is that he seems to go out of his way to talk about people that are marginalized and how they do deserve more protection and safety. So that hasn't been I haven't seen every hour
yeah.
that this man has been on the internet, but I do appreciate that he does really seem to he really seems to take like safety and security. I think that also goes back to that Saturn energy that he's got going on. But I wonder if that isn't maybe part of, potential future projects that Hassan takes on, because I really do think that we're almost like we've seen a lot from Hassan and what he's capable of, but I think there's more. I think there's still more that he's going to do. I'm not saying I don't necessarily see him becoming a politician. I think he's actually better suited in the media space.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel the same.
Yeah, I really think that he has like his finger on the pulse with people and communications and stuff. And so I think he could do some really, really powerful stuff with that. I think that's partly why people keep coming at him, is because they want to diminish the what he's created, and he's shown is possible. He's shown us that there is a deep desire and hunger for people to have truly left leaning media, and not, the centrist bullshit that we get fed. And they're like, this is left. And like, no, these
Right.
people are still saying almost the same thing that the Republicans are saying. What are you talking about? So, save us, Hassan. You're our only hope.
Save us, King and Kyle.
Well, regardless of what happens, I think the next few years are going to be extremely interesting for Hassan, and we'll be watching. So I want to thank you, Mackenzie, for joining me to have this conversation about Hasan Piker's astrology. It was very, very fun. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm always happy to come.